Hi guys, last video for the year. I want to talk about studying for this computer science exam. So, best thing to do to get ready for this computer science exam is to try the practice questions. I've posted some practice questions here and go through the topics I've also posted online. So where you'd like to start is with the Java basics. So go back to that first module on programming in Java and have a look at Java and its advantages, what object-oriented programming means, get your head around that, and classes and the main method and how those things are formatted. And in particular, you're going to want to look at how we output, how we use inputs, so the scanner input, decimal format for shaping the way our outputs look, and how we use that in a system out print line method. So one of the things you can do to kind of save yourself some time, instead of writing the whole system.out.println every time, you can just write SOP with a dot in between each one. I'll know what that means. I'll know how to mark that, and I'll know that you were just saving time. The other things that you're going to want to go back over are the control codes for formatting output, as well as the variable types. You're going to want to be familiar with how we interface with the graphical user interface. There are some questions that do involve the graphical user interface. They're formatted, and I've already created the graphical user interface. You just have to be able to access parts of it to get information and write the code out in little bits and pieces. So again, you're going to want to go over how we get text in from labels, how we send text back out, how we go from having a number to a string, and from a string to a number. You definitely want to be familiar with the math shortcut operators. So using the plus or plus equals, there's a number of ones there. You're going to want to go back through the content, make sure you're familiar with how to use them. Modulus division as well. There are a few questions that rely on modulus division. So go back over that. Make sure you understand how it works. Maybe have some examples on your cheat sheet, something that you can refer to. And then you're going to want to have a list of all the math methods that we discussed in the course, because you may need to make access to those as well. You're going to go back through control structures, so if-else statements, conditional operators, the switch cases, loops, while loops, do-while loops, for loops. You're going to want to make sure you're familiar with all these and know exactly how they work. You're also going to want to be familiar with how to trace through a loop. So there was some exercises on how to do that as well. Bits and bytes. You're going to want to be able to convert between bits and bytes. Go between decimal and binary, vice versa. Go between hex and binary and vice versa. Make sure you're familiar with all those conversions. Methods. As far as methods go, we have those math methods that we discussed before. We also have string methods that are handy and prepackaged and ready to use. You want to be familiar with those, how they work, when to use them, and what they can do for you. You're also going to want to be familiar with how to create your own methods. So how to format them, how to structure them, so that you can, how to pass information back and forth between them, so that you can use them in your code. Arrays, what's the last topic for the year. Again, you're going to want to make sure you've done the practice with those, and that you're comfortable using collections, array lists, looping through an array, initializing and declaring an array, getting information out of an array, putting information into an array. Some tips for the exam. If you're not sure of the code to use, but you know what you want the code to do, you can always fall back to pseudocode. It may not get you a perfect 10 out of 10 on that question, but it does give you insight into your thinking and your problem solving and your ability to program. If you were really programming at your computer and you didn't know the exact code to use, you could always look it up online. You can't do that on an exam. So please feel free to use pseudocode. Try to write it as close to the code as possible. If you're really not sure what the code would look like, you can always just explain your logic, try to get some part marks, and be able to move on throughout the question. What I would hate to see is for somebody to get sort of stuck or bottlenecked at the very start of a question because they didn't know exactly what the code should look like. You definitely want to go back and try some little practice problems in NetBeans. Just even programming on the computer is a good way to practice for this written exam. Just refamiliarizing yourself with what you need to do. Another thing that you can do to just sort of prepare yourself is go back and look at some of our practice problems and just go through in your mind how you would program them without actually programming them on the computer. So what steps you would take, how you would break things down. You do that all mentally. That's another great way to study for the exam. Definitely want to manage your time on the exam, so you don't want to get bogged down on some of the shorter answer questions and not leave yourself enough time for the longer debugging questions or the longer programming questions. You want to be able to work through those questions as quickly as possible. If there's one that you're not sure about, you can always go back to it. You can always just put a star beside it or highlight it or something like that, and then come back and work on it later. Take your time and read the instructions carefully. So look at what the program's asking you to do, or look at what that chunk of coding is asking you to do, or that debugging, and then just take your time working through it. You don't want to make any mistakes. You don't want to miss any important pieces of information. You just want to take your time, read the question carefully. Make some rough notes before diving into a question. So if you can, you want to have some paper there, maybe some foolscap or something like that, you can ask your proctor to provide that for you. And then what you want to do is just make some rough notes before diving into a big programming question. So what variables you might need, how you might structure things, so that when you go to write on the actual exam paper, what you're putting down there is a good copy. So there won't be a lot of scratching out or trying to squeeze things in. Obviously, if you need to squeeze things in, that's fine. If you need extra paper for the exam, maybe I haven't left you enough space for your writing style, please, again, just grab another sheet of paper, continue programming and writing out the program, and then just attach it and show me where it would be. The whole way through, if you need to leave notes for me, just leave notes on there as well. That'll help me kind of follow your logic. If you need to squeeze something in, just leave me a little note there saying that that's what you're doing. If there's something maybe you weren't sure about, or you needed to make an assumption to solve that problem, again, just leave me a little note. That way I can follow your thinking. Try to get some rest the night before. Again, most people are really well positioned to do well in this exam. You've worked through all the material in the course. You've been studying all year long. You've got yourself a good cheat sheet. So you're in a good position to do really well. You don't need to spend all night studying for the exam. If something comes up on the exam and you desperately need clarification, you can get me on Google Meet. I will send out a URL to your schools on Friday morning, so that you can get me on the computer. We can be face-to-face like this. You just need a Chromebook. We can talk online about the question that you're having trouble with or that you're not understanding. Some questions I might not be able to provide clarification, and I hope everybody kind of understands that. There are going to be questions where they may be pretty straightforward. It might not be straightforward to you, but I am providing you any kind of information. I may be giving a hint, so I might not be able to do that. Other questions, you might need clarification, and absolutely I can provide that for you. If you can't get on a computer, hopefully you can maybe get on a telephone. You can call me here at my school. You can just ask to speak to me. I'll be in our e-learning office here, so you can just ask to be put through. I am on supervision at that time for this exam, so I will just be sitting here ready to take your call, unless I'm already speaking to another student, and then you'd have to call back or get me on Google Meet at a different time. What I want to do lastly is thank you for all your hard work in the course. I know that finding programming online, I know that students can find it difficult because you don't have a teacher there to help you through your problems right away, or if you're just getting stuck or you need debugging help, it's a lot different being able to send things back and forth than it is in a classroom. So I appreciate all your hard work, staying with the course, working so hard. In this final week, if you need to get a hold of me, Google Hangouts, Gmail, the course email, or if it's a bigger question and you really need to hear my voice, you can always call me here at the school. Thanks again, and best of luck on the exam.